Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of La Coalición. My name is Eddie Torres, and I am here with two wonderful guests and two beautiful artists from the Riverside area. I would like to pass it over to Ulises to introduce yourself.
Perfect. So my name is Ulises. I am one of the artists right here in Riverside. I am the lead singer for a project called El Santo Golpe, and we do a lot of like Afro-Latin music, influenced by a lot of that folk, traditions, Latin America, and part of the land diaspora and African diaspora.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Ulises. And then we have Cosme.
Yep. My name is Cosme Cordova. I've been in part of Riverside for a very long time now. I own the gallery, Division 9 Gallery. The reason why I started is because at that time, there was no such thing for a gallery that represented people like myself. So ever since then, I've been just showcasing different artists up and coming and also well-established artists.
Awesome. Well, we're really happy to have both of you here. If folks haven't been able to tell yet, this episode is going to be an art and culture in the Inland Empire. We might do a series on this depending on the feedback, so please give us a review. Let us know what you think about this episode. We want to showcase some artists from all over the IE, starting with our folks in Riverside and then potentially moving over to San Bernardino and the Coachella Valley as well. And our folks up in the high desert too that deserve a lot of love as well. But our colleagues here, they brought some art and we want to showcase their beautiful pieces. Ulises, why don't we start with you and tell us what you have in your hands?
Yeah, so we brought our first full-length album that we released during the pandemic. This is called Sueños, as one of the title of one of our songs, which celebrates just the simple fact of having dreams. Simple fact that you wake up in the day and you're like, oh man, I really want some coffee today. That's something worth celebrating. Or maybe you're like, oh, I'm gonna start a cool podcast, or we can represent some cool artists. That's something definitely worth celebrating. Mm-hmm. And the artwork made on this vinyl is by a great artist. He goes by the name of Cali Arte. He's from East LA. He's an amazing artist. He does a lot of vinyl cut, and we're very blessed to have his artwork be represented, as we always love to collaborate with other artists.
Awesome, can't wait to listen to that. So the album is called Sueños and it's by Santo Golpe. And can you tell us your role in the banda? Like, what is it that you play?
With Santo Golpe, we are an artist collective. So we all participate on the compositions of all the songs. A lot of if not all the music that we perform right now is all original compositions. So I am one of the lyricists. I am the accordion player. I play jarana, and I'm also the lead singer for the group.
So you play the accordion too. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, so
I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah. This is why we got along. And Cosme, why don't you tell us about your beautiful art piece over there? So why don't you tell us about it?
So this piece is basically, I just recently had a solo show at my gallery. Every once in a while I do a solo show. And this one is in honor of my father, who actually, at the time, he came here. Actually, my aunt came over to work for a family to take care of their kids, like a babysitter. Then she sent money to my father, and he came over and he started working like from a sewing factory to then later on to like even picking, harvesting the vegetables and fruit and stuff. And then from there he became a construction worker. But long story short, he sent money for us to come out, so we came to visit him, and we were here visiting him. Like a week later, he got caught by the immigration, just literally going to get some coffee.
Wow.
And he was pulled over and arrested and sent back to Mexico. So this piece is kind of relating to that. And at that time, he had to pay $500 in Coyote. So I did a whole series about El Coyote. So it's basically in his honor. And at the same time, I wanted to reflect my life as, a youngster and living in America. So this is a Coyote wearing a suit. And that's basically my representation of myself. Like we have to blend in with society, And then the orange shirt that he's wearing represents my father, which, he worked construction. They always had to wear a yellow or orange or bright colors while they're working construction. So it's kind of like, you take that, you always don't forget where you come from, the labor, the hard work that your relatives have done to get here, and yourself, And then you see the Arizona background. That's where he came through,
I love it. I think there's like a really deep spiritual connection to this painting as well, just based on the Coyote and the Arizona background especially. So, my dad has a really similar story to your dad's, immigrant story as well. So I really appreciate you bringing this piece. It's really beautiful. People, please check it out on our YouTube. And where can people find more of your work at Division 9 Gallery?
Yeah, Division 9 Gallery. Welcome to come down there. I always showcase my work there, and like I say, we always show up and coming and local artists from the neighborhood.
Well, thank you again, Cosme, for sharing your beautiful art piece today. You already talked about a little bit of your background and your history and as an immigrant coming to the U.S. Can you tell us a little bit more about that journey? I think before the episode started, we were talking. You said you came over at 5 years old.
Yeah.
And then where did you settle in, and how did that go?
We came down to, my aunt landed in Riverside, just the family that she took care of happened to be in Riverside, and that's how we ended up in Riverside ourselves. Then once my dad started establishing himself as far as, making more money, he sent money to his brothers, so 7 not together, 7 siblings. So, over the years, he kept sending money and more of his relatives come over. So at one point, we lived all in Riverside. Now we have one living in San Bernardino and other areas. But it's just the journey that he took and my aunt took, it made a big difference in our family,
Yeah,
big
sure.
difference.
Yeah, they took that courageous leap and they made it for your family, right? They took that. Yeah.
And then we just, my mom decided to stay here. We came, like I say, to visit, but she realized being here for like a good 6 months that we weren't getting as sick as we were as when we were in Mexico. So she figured, like, hey, it's better to live here than out there. Because my brother grew up with kind of considered a blue heart, I guess, something like an illness, but he struggled, with his health. So once we came down here, everything kind of changed.
Oh, that's good. And what part of Mexico did your parents
We came from Sonora, a small, near Hermosillo, that's the capital. And then near there is a town called San Pedro de la Cueva, which it's interesting to me because it has a mountain with a cave in it. In Riverside, you have a mountain with a cross on it.
Right.
So there's a lot of similarities. And when you walk down to San Pedro, back then everybody knew who you were, and just by family, oh, you're related to. Everybody gives nicknames to my dad's name. My dad's family would call Luna, so my dad was called Lunita. So everybody knew you by, oh, you're Lunita's son, kind of sort of. So over here in Riverside, I feel the same way. It's a small town. Everybody knows me, because of what I do and stuff in the community. Yeah. So it has the same following, the same feeling.
And your name too. Your name is Cosme, so there's a connection there to our, and so to the sky, to the earth, and to the universe, right? So everything is connected. So I really appreciate that. Yeah. And then just to go a little bit deeper into your background, how did you get started as an artist? You mentioned your piece where you get to blend in and the Eurocentric, attire and then that kind of culture. But for you as an artist, how did you come up? And just tell us more about your journey.
I was inspired by my grandma, who was an artist in her own right. She used to do things with palm tree and like palms, for Palm Sunday. She would just elaborate creations, and she was always a very smart person. Even though she didn't went to school, she didn't know how to write. It came to the point when they asked her to sign, she would just put an X. But she came from the Yaqui, background, the Native American Yaqui from where we're from, and she would tell me that she would pass on like when to grow an orange, when to grow strawberries and so on. But they would sing to keep that forward that information to younger people. So I was just inspired by her creativity, And I remember like trying to do pots with her, like with clay and stuff. So it's one of my first things that I got into, is just playing with mud. It's just something that I used in my life. And it was also, like I always tell people, art has been my vehicle. It's become a vehicle that's taken me places that I never would have imagined. And unfortunately, my dad was an alcoholic, so like anybody, you kind of just lock yourself in a room and start drawing to forget what's going on at the time. So as the time went by, I got better at it, over the years. And then I started expressing myself, and that's what leads into now I'm reflecting a lot of my youth through my paintings. But even when I first began, I did this United States, the shape, and I made it into a tree. So it's basically like a lot of people came, helped this United States, become something more than it is by adding culture, adding our food and different languages. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we live in an awesome country, but it still has a lot of boundaries that we still need to pass.
Yeah, that those branches gotta break through.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Cosme. And Ulises, I'll ask you the same question. Tell us a little bit more about your background. I met you at Latino Network. Also, a huge plug to Latino Network. It's a great place to meet activists like Cosme and Ulises, but also folks that are just involved in the community of Riverside and surrounding areas that are doing a lot of great work. So folks listening and watching, check out the work that they're doing. They're really involved in the art. They're really involved in education. So please check out Latino Network as well. That's where I met Ulises and Cosme. And Ulises, when we first met, you mentioned your story immigrating from Mexico City. So if you can just tell us more about your story and how you get involved with art.
Yeah, so I was born and I grew up in Mexico City until I was 14 years old. I was always surrounded by art. Luckily, I was very fortunate in that aspect, as my dad is a painter and muralist, and he lives in Guanajuato now. But he did a lot of work back then. He used to do a lot of comics. So before like all the technology that is now, he will get the script and then he will have to like read it and then sketch out the comic books, and then he will send them out to get inked.
That's so
And
cool.
so always grew up like him working at home doing that. Um, and uh, and you know, at the age of 14, after my parents got separated or like got divorced, we were forced due to, you know, family, economy, like a lot of different things. We have reasons where we had to migrate to the United States, you know. And during that time for me, it was like a big culture shock, because it's not just the fact that like there's so many people speaking a whole different language than you, like that communication is a little bit rough. But at the same time, it's also you're coming from a country where art is part of your life. It's like a right. Like you're surrounded by art all the time, and then like education is a right. Like there's a lot of stuff that like you kind of take for granted, and being here all of a sudden you have to pay for education. Art starts to become a little bit more of a privilege. Then it's something that is part of your life. So all of those things definitely were a little bit of a shock, being here. Fortunately, I was able to be surrounded by older people who were very active in the music, and through my life, I've been able to meet amazing artists, amazing community activists, amazing people like Cosme that I get to work with now, and this is, you know, big inspiration of what has allowed me to create what I'm able to create. A big part of my life, you know, coming up, I started, you know, I met my friends who are like my family now. I've known them for over 20 years, where we used to play music, we used to play like psychobilly and stuff like those, that I got into it.
Yeah.
And then as I started growing older, I felt this need of reconnecting with a lot of my roots and traditions. So I started studying a lot of son jarocho, which is traditional music from Veracruz, Mexico, and I did a lot of activism in Santa Ana as well, actually, with the Centro Cultural de Mexico.
Oh, nice.
And I did a lot of theater with the Latina Bread of Fire Theater Ensemble, which does a lot of theater for justice. And they touch on a lot of topics that are very relevant to the community. And then, you know, participate in a lot of like activism and protestas and things, always looking for.
You were a Mayday.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were a Mayday in downtown Riverside.
Yeah.
I saw you in some of the videos because I was doing security, like working the back of the line.
Yeah.
But then when I saw some videos later on, I was like, this guy is getting down and dancing in front of the line of the Mayday rally. Yeah, that's cool. That was really cool.
I'm always down for the cause, you know, like
Yeah.
I always, I definitely don't have much, don't have a lot of shame, but like I'm always, I'm not one to stay quiet when something is wrong, you know. I think that's against some of my beliefs, but also like try to advise people on what's the right way to do it. In my experience, no, doesn't mean I'm right. It just means what has worked for me. But you know, and now with Santo Golpe, I feel like this project is by no means a way to. There's a fine line between cultural appropriation and honoring something, right? I have always expressed to like in shows or people that get to talk to us that we are by no means like playing all Garifuna or playing all son jarocho or playing all like bomba or like anything like that, is or Colombian cumbia, nothing like that. It's just borrowed influences that we have. But if we can start those conversations with anyone that is like, oh, that's really cool, what does that sound from? I'd be like, oh, well, this was borrowed from here, please check it out and study it, like understand where they come from. And it helps us bring a little bit of that diversity and conversations where like everything is part of one single thing, we all just express it differently, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I can't wait to listen to your album, Sueños. I'm really looking forward to that. And just a little bit about what you were telling me reminds me, part of your origin story is up, but there's a difference, right? I think for you, you came at 14 and you came at 5, and coming in when you're 14 years old, like your whole world is, you know, what you see as the world is something different when you come over to the US, you know what I mean? I was lucky enough to be born here, but I have a lot of cousins and tios that came over when they were around that age. You know, teenagers just became teenagers and they came over here to work. And then some of them actually became artists too, and tattoo artists. So this is a really cool episode for me personally, because I was also in high school, I was tattooing people in my garage, right? So I would sketch all the time, and then my friends actually they decided that I was really good at drawing, so they wanted me to tattoo them. So they bought me a machine from China, and then literally I started tattooing them in my garage ever since. But I haven't picked up the machine in a long time. I don't do that anymore. You guys are the artists here.
Like, I was like, good, let's do one right here. Right
No, but you know, for me, the tattoos are really beautiful, and I, you know, eventually one day, I probably will be covered in them eventually. But for right now, I'll just have a couple of pieces here. This one in particular is about Mexico and Zapata and a little bit of the Mexican Revolution. So I'm really trying to find my ways as I get older as well, trying to find my connections back to the motherland, so to speak. So thank you both for sharing your background. I just wanted to share a little bit of mine, but there's a lot of work that you guys are both doing here in the Inland Empire. So I wanted to ask you both, describe some of the impact that you've seen in your work or in your colleagues' work around the area that may have had a cultural impact in the Inland Empire. I mentioned before we were talking about the Cheech Museum. That's like a huge impact, right? Just for the Inland Empire as a whole. But what other impacts are there? Maybe you guys can go into what you guys have seen with the Cheech coming to the Inland Empire and how that has impacted local artists.
I mean, if I could take a little bit back myself, like I know we could talk about the Cheech. It's a national institution. It's opening doors for a lot of people. It's a place where we all can come and have a conversation. But you know, talking about what we're talking about, one of the biggest impacts for me was like, you know, bringing Riverside Day of the Dead to, you know, Dia de los Muertos to Riverside. We did it, like my friend and I participated in Palm Desert. We had an art museum director out there, and he invited us, me as an artist and my friend Ana Tejera Badafrico, and you know, she was invited all the way over there to have her Aztec dancers. And we did it for 2 years, but then the director had to move. So both of us were like, what should we do? Let's do it I had a gallery in downtown, so let's just do it in Riverside. But the impact it had, it was, you know, I did not expect it. A lot of people came to me like, wow, you know, this is what takes place in Mexico. And this is in 2004. And it's like just people being happy that they're able to celebrate, because majority of them did not have the papers to go back home. You know, they were working illegally here, you know. And it was just that impact that cultural event did. It was just amazing. And how like a lot of them were just like, some even cried, you know, because you know, it was just a piece of Mexico that they just had forgotten about because they could not go back, you know. They couldn't see their relatives or go to the cemeteries, as you know, to honor their relatives. And that's all what on a day-to-day is about, you know, the altars and going somewhere to cemeteries and remembering those people who are part of your impacted your life, or family members to friends, you know. But I mean, that itself was just it was just amazing. And even then, like, people didn't know what Day of the Dead was. Like, a lot of people thought it was a cult. So I had to like educate people for at least good 7 years in Spanish and English what it was, because even some of our, you know, you would say Latin American, Chicano, Mexican Americans didn't know what that was, or you know, because they only celebrated certain states, you know, in Mexico. But just the impact that it had, like educating people about it, and now, you know, fast forward, you come in with the movie Coco, and now all of a sudden everybody wants to be a part of it, right? But I mean, it was cool that they did that, and it was a good movie. But you know, it was something that, you know, a lot of times you people are in the fight, you know, from the beginning, and people just don't hear it until somebody says the right thing, or they show them the right, you know, the purpose, or you know, something, you know, take the blindfolds off. But as far as the Cheech Museum, I think it's one of those things that we're grateful to have in Riverside. It's grabbing a lot of attention. You know, I got to curate 2 of the shows, from the grand opening to the one recently right now. And it's just amazing, because it's just become, to me, it's gonna be a hub that we can all express ourselves, and hopefully it becomes more than just a Cheech. You know, a center where we can come and educate each other.
Yeah, for sure. And I've had the chance to go to the first exhibit at the Cheech, and I spent my time on my phone looking at the QR codes and reading everything on the background of the artist. And in particular, there was one piece that caught my eye, and I forgot the name of the artist, so excuse me, sorry about that, but it was one on Echo Park that was boarded up with fences, and there was a street vendor outside, right? Well, that one just really caught my attention because we work with street vendors at ICIJ and advocating for them, but also the fencing along the park, right? And that's like a huge fight right now. I know recently it was taken down, but for homeless people, that was like the place where they would stay. And so that was just a really awesome piece. And there's so many beautiful pieces at the Cheech. I haven't been to the new exhibit, but I will soon, so I'm really looking forward to that. But going back to the Day of the Dead, I've been to a couple of Day of the Deads in Riverside. And the first one I went to was awesome because I could actually walk around. And the second one I went to, dude, it was like shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
There were so many people there, but it was still a good time.
Yeah.
I saw the luchadores,
Yeah.
Danza Azteca. What I really liked about it too was all the there was a bunch of people that had like the Chola Squinkle dogs.
Yes.
Yeah, and had them painted in the Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
It was so cool. So it's a good time, people. If you're in the area for can you tell us what day it is? What day of the year?
We, when I first started, I always did it on the actual traditional day, which is November the 2nd, first and second. But over time, it's just when it landed on a Monday or a Tuesday or Wednesday, it was just difficult. And the city only gave me like an hour to set up. So I finally said, you know what, I'm just going to move it on Saturdays. And so we do it the first Saturday of every November. Every year. This is going to be our 20th year anniversary this year.
Wow.
So it's time has flown, I got gray hair now.
Mark your calendars,
Yeah,
people.
just
20-year anniversary.
20-year anniversary. So yeah, so every Saturday, the first Saturday of November.
Okay.
It has never changed. It will not change. And hopefully it can be carried on even after I pass.
Yeah.
But I invite everybody. It's just an amazing event.
Yeah.
And just not to forget that it is a celebration. It is a party, but always honor those who have who are set the ground before you. Family members who passed away, honor them. Even though I'm so busy, I don't have the chance to do an altar. I do tend to think about them, my relatives all day. Like all day, I'm thinking about my brother, my dad, uncles, cousins who have died. But if you can always create one at home too. It doesn't necessarily have to be, at a cemetery.
Yeah.
But a lot of people tend to forget, and they just already, food and everything and celebrating. But you remember, we're celebrating someone who's passed away.
Yeah.
And tell someone a joke. Hey, my dad used to say this joke, or my uncle used to say this, or I remember my dad, or a cousin or a friend. You know what I mean? A story of somebody who's passed away, because that's the important part of it.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to educate people.
And we do that too. So every year we do a Day of the Dead event up in Adelanto for the people that have passed away inside of detention. There's been 7 people so far, and one that was really sick inside, then was transported over to hospital where he eventually passed away. But every year we do a Day of the Dead event up there, and we'll take the Calavet up there, and we'll do a whole altar setup too. And that's one way that we honor them, and we have people that are related to them come over and tell us some stories, or just talk about who they were as a person. And we do it in front of City Hall, so that the elected officials can know that these are actually people in here. They're not just a number. So.
Welcome you guys to come and set it up at our event.
Yeah, that would be a really great way to bring awareness to the folks down there in Riverside. Yeah, thank you. Ulises, I'll ask you the same question. As a musician in the IE, we can talk a little bit later on about Mucho Gusto, a wonderful festival coming to the area. But I guess over the years, what impact have you seen as immigrant culture, Chicano culture in the IE as a musician? How's it grown? I think a lot of people might think that they need to go to LA for a show, or in Chicano, the observatory, but I'm sure there's some spots down here in Riverside where people can go to.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. It's kind of funny because it's almost kind of a similar thing, right? Like you were mentioning the Cheech. I think the center is an amazing place that has brought a lot of eyes to look back towards Riverside. But for many years, Riverside has always been like the mecca of art, and like there's a lot of great musicians and great artists coming out of the Inland Empire. Not just Riverside, but the whole Inland Empire. Santo Golpe is very lucky to be part of this community of artists. And big shout out to Quitapenas from Riverside, who are doing amazing things right now. They're touring everywhere. And we have amazing artists in our, that can call friends in San Bernardino as well, who like Brain Story. Those guys are amazing. And then Milpa as well, Milpa Music, who's doing amazing things, always community work at the Garcia Center and doing a lot of stuff. So big shout out to all those families, that always we're lucky to call friends. And one thing that I do see with artists in the IE is the love and support for each other. It's something that I have rarely, not that it's a bad thing, like in LA or other places. It's just that sometimes it feels like it's a little too competitive, where everybody's trying to outshadow everybody else. But here it has always felt like support. Like everybody's happy for each other. We're all sharing each other's events, even though we have nothing to do with them. And then we have amazing community activists like Cosme, who has opened the doors for a lot of us to be part of, like, perform a Day of the Dead at different community festivals. And then that has also inspired at least me personally, to create other safe spaces, to bring workshops, to bring music, to bring classes, to educate certain people, to have these conversations, those pláticas that are so important, to be had, and how we can continue to open more spaces, and continue to open more celebrations, and continue to make sure that our community feels safe and supported and honored and heard and listened to, where they have space where we can talk. So I think for us as musicians, as an artist, as at least us, art is activism, whether you want it or not. I feel like you're representing something, you're speaking up, and there's people who will listen. So we gotta be careful about the message we take across.
Yeah, I think especially now more than ever, that message is really needed, right? I think we're seeing a lot of pushback from folks who may not be politically lined up with our values and missions, right? I think that in Riverside, I've seen a lot of protests against when the sanctuary city laws came into effect. Riverside became a sanctuary city, which is awesome, but there was a lot of pushback from people, and those people are still there in Riverside. It's not as good of a place for immigrants as we want it to be. We work closely with the city to pass an ordinance to decriminalize street vendors, and there's still work there that we need to do, but progress is being made because of people like you and Cosme that have been doing the work and laying that foundation for so long. We're slowly but surely getting there, right? And I know that accessibility is something really near and dear to your heart, because you mentioned that, right? Coming over to the US, it was capitalized, you had to pay for access to art, but it looks like you're making some ways into opening up ways for people to get into art. So can you tell us more about some of the projects that you have, maybe with your music, or just working with the community in terms of like opening up those opportunities?
Yeah, definitely. So recently we've been doing a lot of work with Division and Gallery to doing some free events for the community, like the Day of the Dead. Like I've been a little more involved on that as well. But not just that, we also try to support different groups in Moreno Valley, San Bernardino, or like other Downey, Redlands, where we can help them organize their events. We are by no means trying to take over anything, because that would be impossible for us to even try to accomplish, but just to support and show them what has been successful to us, and if something from that helps, great, we can help on them. Also, we were also very fortunate to recently be one of the grant recipients for the corps, the creative corps. So we received a grant where we're on the process of creating 12 different workshops for free for the community.
Wow.
With a celebration towards the end. So we're gonna have music workshops, we're gonna have paper mache workshops, we're gonna have mosaic workshops, we have visual arts workshops, poetry, acting, and everything will be a celebration towards the end in collaboration with the Diversity Center in Riverside and Ramona High School and a lot of different organizations. Awesome. So that's something that we're doing right now to continue to create more of that work. And at the same time, we're creating, like for example, Mucho Gusto is a festival that we're trying to put together where it will be the first international music festival that has happened in Riverside. It's taking place in downtown Riverside at our park on September 23rd. And we were very fortunate because, so many years of like playing and like creating these connections, creating these friendships with other people. Now we are able to bring an amazing band from Colombia called La Perla. It's like 3 female amazing artists who are just, I'm very excited to see them. And then we also have these amazing artists also, up and coming reggaeton artists named Medio Piki from the Dominican Republic. We have Orchestra Gold, who come from Arizona, West Africa. Then we have Arenas, who's supporting the project from Chicano Batman with his own project too, which is pretty cool. Then we have amazing DJs like Jeremy Zoll, KCRW DJ. We have La Papaya Club. Papaya Club is a great LA crew who every time they had a show, or every time they put like a show together, they fundraise money, everything that they raise is to help nonprofits, organizations across Latin America, not just in the US, but in Latin America, which is amazing, So we have also amazing female crew, Cumbiaton, who's doing some great work, creating some great spaces and parties and things. And so they're coming together to do things. We have another Nino Francois from San Bernardino, another amazing DJ. And of course, we have some local artists. We have Milpa Music, Quita Pena, Santo Golpe, also like sharing a little bit of that.
Can't
So
wait.
we have, it's gonna be a really cool, and not just that, but we have so many visual artists participating, like Richie De La Deso is like overseeing a lot of the artwork. Cosme is helping with a lot of the planning organization with Division 9. And it's gonna be like piñata surrealism, almost like a carne asada type of feel.
Yeah.
And we're
Sounds like a party to me.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
a big party. And the main
Yeah.
thing that we wanna make clear too is like, 'cause we really wanna invite everybody. Like, this is a safe space, and especially like you were mentioning, there's a lot of people who might not understand the culture, who might not understand what it is. Come out, hang out with us,
Mhm.
understand it, and if you don't like
Yeah.
it, that's cool. You don't have to like it. You
Stay
can
for a
respect
set,
it, have a good
you
time,
know?
stay
Yeah.
for a set. But at the same time, if you enjoy and you love it, like dance with us, sing with us, be
Yeah.
part of it, understand it. That's why I think anyone who can travel should travel, because it humbles you. It makes you understand the difference of cultures and where everybody comes from. And those who cannot travel, we try to create these spaces, these events, so it feels like you're in a different country, in a different
Mhm.
world.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait for that. That's happening in September, right?
Yeah, September 23rd.
September 23rd. So keep an eye out for that. Where can people find the tickets to?
Right now we have our website is called muchogustofest.com. Tickets are available now. They're at a discount right now. And if we could, we'd probably do everything for free, but at the same time we have to compensate the artists that are coming to play from so far away. But
Yeah.
please, any support, anything like that, we're always happy.
I think it's really special for the IE, and just like how you were talking earlier about how in LA it might be more competitive, or people are trying to like jump over each other, climb up that ladder. Here in this coalition too, we see it the same way as you guys see it as artists and musicians, because we're over 35 organizations that form this coalition, right? We have people that work in labor, people that work in warehouse workers, people that work in Pomona as well, doing the same resources that we provide here in the San Bernardino area. But we have people power. We don't
Yeah.
have the capital to fundraise everything on our own, but we have people. They can come out to our events, support us, and that's what makes us really strong in the IE, is the fact that we have a really strong volunteer network. We just launched our hotline, which is a resource for everybody to call in and find out. Like for example, let's say that there's something going on with your community, with ICE is in your community. You can call into our hotline and find out how you can push back and support the people that are potentially being detained. And also just in general for street vendors and everything else that we do in the IE, all the advocacy work, we're building a really strong network around outreach and volunteers. And I think that's what makes the IE special, is that we've always had to find ways to climb up and do the work that we need to do, because we don't have the investments like Orange County and LA has, or the Bay.
Yeah.
So we're always competing for scraps, but we find a way to make it work. And at the end of the day, the work is really beautiful too.
Yeah, and it's like, just to touch on that too, as I was mentioned, one really cool thing that we like to always highlight in events that we create is the fact that we always go to local artists, local vendors. We always accept sponsorships, but like the main goal is to highlight these local vendors and artists who are there all the time and supporting each other. And that's the one thing that we try to tell people. It's always nice when the city or government can support your ideas, but it's not necessary.
Right.
We just need each other.
Yeah.
And we can make it happen.
Yeah. Well, Cosme, going back to you, I know you have a hat on. Maybe you want to talk about what that logo represents, or maybe you want to keep that on the wraps later on.
Keep it on. Let's
Keep it on the wraps. But
I didn't tell you what it is.
can you tell us about that, because I think it's really important too that we have the IE painted in the background, right? And in the first episode we did, we talked about how the Inland Empire, that phrase, that term came from the Ku Klux Klan, right? That was their term for this area, because this was part of their hub, right? They had headquarters in Norco and other parts of the IE, and that was the name they had for the Inland Empire. So a lot of the work that we're doing is changing the narrative around immigration, right? And part of that is potentially changing what we refer to as the IE, maybe the Inland Valley, which isn't directly correlated to the KKK. Your hat is something along those lines, not exactly related to that, but I think it's still something different in you, right? So do you want to go into that?
Yeah, I designed this hat as pretty much the combination of the R for Riverside and then the rain cross, and it's just, I wanted to create an image of someone who's proud to be a from Riverside, and not necessarily like a rain cross where like, you know, the rain cross has been taken a little bit further, and it's, you know, like when you see it, it's more thuggish or not inviting. So I kind of wanted to create something that, you know, people are proud to wear and inviting, like, hey, you know, I support Riverside, you know. And I am working on a logo for IE myself as well.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah, it's in the works.
Okay, cool.
It's been something.
Yeah.
You know, and it, just to be funny, I do an event called Inland Empire Strikes Back. It's a Star Wars event.
Oh, that's nice.
So that's my
right.
way of taking, you know, Inland Empire and making it, you know, a little twist to it.
I think I've seen that sign on the 91, like by the auto centers. Yeah, there's like a billboard up there. I think I've seen that a couple times driving by. What's that about? What's the IE Strikes Back?
The Inland Empire Strikes Back. It's just, you know, like a Star Wars movie, you know, the movie, but it's just Inland Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
You know, it's a community-driven, all Star Wars. People dress up, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up watching, you know, Star Wars all my life, you know, so I love it, you know, so can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
And seeing all the characters, you know, you have names like, you know, Chewbacca, come on, you know.
Chewy,
you know.
Yeah.
R2D2, he's Mexican, you know.
Yeah, Arturito.
Yeah, they're all Mexican.
Yeah, for sure. Talk about appropriation, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're almost towards the end, but there was a quote that I shared with you all that I want to bring up just because it touches on the conversation that we've had so far. And Ulises, you mentioned a little bit about what art and activism is, right? So this is a quote that I found a couple of weeks ago that I wanted to share with everybody. It's by Kwame Ture, and the quote is, "Culture is created only by the people. All artists use this culture. They do not create it. A writer writes a song or a book. They did not create music, language, or writing. The people did. Thus, the artist only represents the people's culture. The culture of all oppressed is the culture of resistance. The enemy seeks to corrupt the artist into misrepresenting the people's culture, thus betraying them. Thus, all artists coming from an oppressed people must represent resistance in their art form. Anything other than that is betrayal." So I think that was a really powerful quote from a really beloved revolutionary Kwame Ture. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on what that quote means to you, if you have any reflections on that for both of you.
Yeah, so for me, it's definitely, you know, it's something really, really great that I think we as artists need to keep in mind all the time. Because yeah, you're right. Like, culture is not created by one single person. You know, it's something that the people have created. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of resistance. It's a way of survival, and it's a way of honoring who we are and representing who we are. Right. So also as artists, as we create, as we borrow from inspirations from different things, it's always important to understand where those inspirations come from. In Son Jarocho, and I speak a lot about it because it's something that I love, is very important to me. But in Son Jarocho, there's a saying that says, I'll say in Spanish and I'll translate. So it says, música del pueblo no es, un son es música, no es música del pueblo hasta que el pueblo lo cante y se olviden de tu nombre. So it's like, a song is not a song until everybody sings your song and forget about your name, because that's when it becomes culture. That's when it becomes the folk music. You know, that's when you have finally become part of something, and it's not about recognition. It's not about, oh, look what I created. It's not about like the gains that comes from it. It's about representing. Right? So when you hear a quote like that, it's definitely a way of living.
Yeah.
I'm down for the.
That's beautifully said. Thank you. Yeah. And Cosme, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, to me, it's like, culture is the people, right? And it's generational too, because a lot of times, you know, it just the new generation. You know, you can teach somebody something, but unfortunately, they can't, you know, like learn 100% of it. So then they take 80%, then they add their 20%.
Right.
So it's an ongoing, moving thing, you know.
Yeah.
But it's always interesting because you have the rich who, you know, I've traveled to New York and I remember being at a bar, and my friend asked me questions. Do you think these people here are rich? I'm like, well, they don't look rich. I go, yeah, these guys are, you know, their families are really well known. They're rich, but they dress poor because they want to be a part of the culture. You know, and then yet we have poor people who dress rich to be part of that culture.
Yeah.
So it's a mixed match, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's just, you know, culture is what everybody is into, you know, what they're moving to. And it makes an impact. You know, if you gather people to think the same way, it will open more doors, right?
Yeah. And like you said too, Coco is a wonderful movie. But I think ideally people would rather be moved by Dia de los Muertos events, grassroots events, right?
Yeah.
Which are community in mind, right?
Yeah.
Not to say that Coco wasn't, but at the same time, you see all the people that are beloved to Dia de los Muertos and the Riverside Festival. So I think that kind of aligns with what you're saying, right? Let's have the culture come up from the ground up and not be, coming from the top down, telling us what we should listen to and how we should dress, right?
Yeah.
So thank you both so much for joining us. This has been a wonderful episode. I really look forward to seeing the final version of this and seeing everything edited at the end. Just want to give you guys all a last chance to just shout out anybody that you want to just, hey, people out there should look into, or maybe any artists or musicians out there that you guys want to just sign off on.
Yeah, I mean, once again, just big shout out to all the big community, and not just the artists, but like the big community and the big support that we have had in Riverside, San Bernardino. Shout out to the Garcia Center, shout out to the Justice Center in Riverside, shout out to the Civic Center, and that's, big shout out to the ICIJ, because although it's a new organization, they have been very welcoming and always being welcome to collaboration and learning from communities. So thank you for them for doing that. Division 9 Gallery, and just all everybody out there, all the families, because the most important thing, one, as an artist, like, it's important to have that support. You can't just be an artist because you decide to be an artist. There's a huge army behind you, which is your family, your friends, who are always like inspiring you and supporting you to keep going. So it's not easy, but
yeah,
big shout out to all of them.
Oh, thank you. And Cosme?
To me, it's just for those individuals who want to be artists, just do it. Grab a sketchbook. You can sketch on it. You can write music, write poetry. Just keep pushing forward every day, because eventually you'll get to a point where you're finding your dreams come true, in a sense. And I think that's what and communicate to people. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I look intimidating. my son-in-law, my stepsons are like, hey, my friend saw you at church, and why are you mad? It's I can't say the Irish because in here, but I have my, that's my resting face.
Yeah.
But and there's just approach people. Don't be afraid, and share your ideas, because that's where the ideas is where everything comes from. And just as a group, if you don't share your ideas, how do we know how to make things better? Like, I could be walking down the street thinking I'm right in the correct way, but hey, across the street, there's more opportunities than those. Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and hopefully people can be inspired by walking into your Division 9 gallery, and also walking to Mucho Gusto Festival in September. So thank you everybody for checking out this episode 8, maybe 9, depending if we switch some stuff up. But again, thank you everybody for joining, and we'll wrap it up.
Gracias.
Cross out the H team.
Yeah.